Hi, it's me, Ingrid INFP. And I had a social worker come to my house, first session, where I basically just did the dishes and talked to her about my life. I did not want anybody to tell me what to do or to tell me how to do it. I get really triggered by somebody being in my, perceiving me while I'm doing things. I can't stand that. I need. It's basically like just doing a live with you guys. When I'm doing a live with you guys, it's like, okay, so you're not there really. I'm just talking, but you're not there. So it's like body doubling, but like I know the person is there, but they're not really there. And so otherwise, so I'm like hacking my social anxiety and my, PDA and my RSD and all that. Yeah. So I'm really tired after that, and I tried to film this video, but yeah, we're going to do this. I also had a tough day at work because I had to tell one of my patients that we happened to find a metastasis to some. We don't know where the primary tumor is, so we have to find a primary tumor. It all started with a pain in a hip, and it was just such a weird pain because it was like such extreme pain in a hip for no reason that I could find. So I felt like I had to do an x-ray, and we did find a reason for the pain in the hip, but that wasn't the biggest problem, because when I was looking for that, then we happened to find a tumor, and tumor is not the thing that's giving her the pain in the hip, but they happened to find that. So it was kind of like something extra that we happened to find. And so I had to tell the patient that, and that we will have to find where the primary tumor is. Like, that's one of the worst things that you can hear. It's one thing to hear like you have cancer, but another one to hear, oh, we found the tumor, but that's not, you have other tumors too, which are going to be an even bigger problem. But we don't know where, so that was tough for me. But anyway, we're going to talk about some books that I have read and some books that have stressed me out and annoyed me. But the first book is Sum of Our Parts by Laura Kennedy. Some as in a few, rather than some 1 + 1. And it's about how we are more than our labels that we assign ourselves or that other people assign to us. It's a good book. I would recommend it. However, the autism chapter is not good. She talks about how each okay, sorry, my dad's flight got canceled, so I'm like, what? Anyway, and also it's very windy outside. Anyway, so Sum of Our Parts, she talks about how we create need labels, and so feminism was one of her labels, a feminist. But since everybody says that they're a feminist and have opposite opinions, what is really feminism? Another question is poverty. How does that affect her? Her mom being a single mom, and how did her death affect her, and how being in an interracial marriage was a thing to navigate in terms of her own identity, but also in terms of his identity. She talks about how being Irish is part of our identity. She talks about how being Irish, for example, has this idea of rejection of the British, which is kind of creating the self in opposition to something else, which is kind of creating an anti-self rather than creating a self. She is a doctor in philosophy, so she describes these certain interesting concepts in a fun way. I found it to be really interesting, and this whole channel is about labels, so I think that it's a pretty good book for me to read. She talked about how being depressed, having the label of depression, really held her back because she wasn't like feeling like she could ever change as a person. So it was quite interesting. The most interesting part was also how she talks about how we start to assimilate and think that our wants are everybody else's wants, like, or the other way around, that the conformity, the consensus of everybody has become what we want. And so we just follow what everybody else wants because we think that we want the same thing. Which is interesting, and I definitely relate to that. So it was good until I came to the autism chapter, and I had no idea that she was autistic, but she is. And she uses some old vocabulary like severe autism, like female autism. Not great. But she does use autistic person rather than person with autism, which is a win. However, she also does not really acknowledge that autism is, she does say that autism has become an identity, but she doesn't seem too happy about it, you know? She kind of totally forgets for some reason that there is a community of autistic people. Like, she seems to think like she's above other autistic people somehow. And she doesn't believe that autism is neurodevelopmental, which is like, what do you think it is? She actually says that it can't be neurodevelopmental. And I'm like, that's the whole definition of autism. So yeah, I kind of wanted to stop reading the book at all at that point, but okay. She doesn't believe that the rising rates of autism truly show like real autistic people, because she thinks that it's strange that private assessment centers don't like have such a high rate of autism diagnosis. And yeah, basically non-autistic people are not going to be going and searching for a diagnosis. Like, who would want to put themselves through that? So yeah. And I think she talks about how it's a trend, and she believes that it is used as an excuse to be rude, to be a dick, that kind of thing. And she talks about how being rude is easier for everyone. That when we're all a bit tired, then we all want to kind of act rude, but we act polite, which takes extra effort from us, which is true. It is true. But being rude is often accidental for autistic people, and it's not like they want to be rude, and it's not like it's easier for us to be rude. And honesty might come naturally to us, and that might be interpreted as rudeness. But it's not like we're going out of our way to be rude, you know? And it's not like we need to be perceived as rude. It's just that we are by society. And yeah, so I did not really like that. I also did not like that she went to a neurodivergent therapist, and I was so jealous. Maybe that therapist was not great because she didn't really listen to Laura Kennedy, who is the author. But the therapist had a point that CBT is not good for autistic people. But Laura Kennedy took that personally, like that this therapist suddenly judged her from her labels without taking the rest of her into account, like going specifically into the autism. And it's kind of like, well, that's the whole point of you looking for a neurodivergent affirming therapist, is you want to find a therapist who is going to associate some of the things that you're struggling with autism, you know? Like, where are you finding these neurodivergent, affirming and neurodivergent therapists? There aren't that many. So I feel like Laura Kennedy does not like her autism diagnosis. She doesn't celebrate it. It feels like she only identifies to the label and that she can break the label. it feels like she is one of those people who is like, pull yourself out of your bootstraps, you are not incapable, you can do whatever you set your mind to. You're not going to be limited by your diagnosis. And she's not very happy for her diagnosis, and she doesn't find it to be that important to her. And that sure is an experience. Like, I wish I could have just moved on after gotten an autism diagnosis, but she did, but I can't. I mean, we can't all get a special interest in autism, but like, I found that it was life-changing, and it's not life-changing for her, so I don't know how she lives her life, but like, that was a bit strange. It's a bit strange when people are like, yeah, I just got an autism diagnosis, like, no big deal. Like, whoa. I mean, it might have been that she got her autism diagnosis not so long ago, and maybe she's still processing it, or she got it a really long time ago and she thinks that it's no big deal, but I think it's a really big deal. Anyway, she talks about the worst thing here. The worst is that she talks about, I wrote here, you can't skip the self-care in order to push yourself, is what I wrote to myself. She talks about how she wants to skip the self-care in terms of therapy. She wants to stop seeing herself as a victim and incapable, and looking into self-care and how to be kind to yourself, and to instead be told the truth, and to push herself, and to self-actualize, right? Which, sure, very brave, and it's good to stretch the limits of your comfort zone. However, you can't do that unless you have a foundation of self-care. You have to, it's like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs or whatever. You need to have that safety in your body, in your mind. You need to have a basis of taking care of your body and mind in order to be able to push yourself outside of those boundaries, in order to feel like you are not going into danger every time, that you're like just slightly pushing the boundary, going into the learning zone, the stretch zone, not going into the danger zone, because if you are not doing the self-care, then your danger zone is going to be huge, and your comfort zone is going to become smaller and smaller. And so by working on the self-care, you can expand your comfort zone slowly by expanding it, at the edges. But if you go over the edge, then you're just going to go into burnout. So I am strongly against this idea of like skipping the self-care in order to push yourself. You have to, do the self-care. You need to be able to push yourself a little bit, but pushing yourself day in, day out in order to reach self-actualization is not going to be the good way to go. So that was a thing that made me shake with rage and almost have a meltdown. Like, it wasn't the little things about the terminology of autism. This was a basic life principle that I was not clicking with. So, love most of the book. Very interesting ideas about labels and about part autobiography, part philosophical discussion, part discussions just about life. Very good book, but the autism part is lacking in a certain kind of self-awareness, a certain kind of soul searching. It feels like she hasn't done the psychological work that would make her so much more happy. So that's all I had to say about that book. I'm going to make another video with some other books that I have read. So tell me what you guys think. Have a great day, everybody.